In 2022, my dad and I started floating the idea of a road trip together. We initially booked on to do the 2023 Mongol Rally, where you drive from Prague to just above Mongolia. But certain inconveniences such as the war in Ukraine and the issues in Iran, combined with quite limited time of work for myself, really quite impeded our ability to head as far east as we had hoped. Ultimately, we ended up with the plan to drive from the north of England through Europe and Turkey to Georgia. We would pass through 15 countries and do over 8,500 miles, all in less than 6 weeks. It was a trip that would test our patience with each other, as well as take us to places we would never have seen otherwise. We bought a small van, planning to bring camping gear but have the van itself be a backup sleeping area in case of poor weather.
You're right, it wasn't gentle.
We insulated the inside, put felt along the walls and threw down a carpet. Luxury was achieved. We tested the van for a night up near Scotland, and then a few weeks later at the start of April, we were off over the channel and onto the continent. The first few days were wet and miserable, but we made it through Belgium, Luxembourg and South Germany into Austria, where it was also wet and miserable. We attempted to drive up a big hill, but the van overheated, so we stopped. We reached northern Italy and the Dolomites, where I was finally able to crack out my drone and really start to document the amazing scenery around us. Unfortunately, it turned out that I was rubbish at driving a drone, and I had to run up the road to rescue it, as it was trying to land in the river. The drone would go into hibernation for a while now, until I dared to try it again. We trundled our way through northern Italy and Slovenia, which seemed to merge into one massive vineyard. We stopped for a night at a flooded quarry, where our peace and calm was occasionally interrupted by loud, distant bangs, the source of which we could never identify. We left that mystery behind us and ventured onwards, entering and leaving Hungary within the same day, arriving into the land of the stray dogs, Romania. Now, Romania is certainly an interesting country, but it may not be so for the right reasons. It can't be denied that it has some incredible scenery, and the few people we did encounter there were lovely, but every stereotype that you think of when you think of Romania, we saw that. We saw extreme poverty, houses with broken down cars outside them, children playing in the streets. And as you drive past, it's this incredible mix of huge houses that somehow manage to look abandoned, just next door to these dirt shacks or broken down rubble of a house. It's very tough to look at in a lot of ways, and I know my dad found it tough to see his very visible poverty, and I don't think he'll go back because of that. A short while later, we left Romania and entered Bulgaria, where we met many cows. Roughly a week into our journey, we were finally able to use our tent, and it did well. It was great. We stayed outside a chalet, and it was lovely, except for the food.
Chicken's a bit tough.
But no time to dwell on such things. Now was a time for the border with Greece and sunshine. Our first night in Greece brought us one of the best meals of our journey, a delicious Greek salad next to the Mediterranean. And being British, we went straight to the beach afterwards. For me, it felt like now the journey was starting to get more serious, as we left the safety and comforts of Greece and Europe and entered Turkey through the heavily fortified border. You're reminded pretty early on that you're entering a much more conservative country, and, well, just listen. Leaving Turkey's #1 hit single behind us for a while, we continued on into the literal open roads.
Nice sheep, you should be able to say in Turkish then.
Nice sheep, absolutely.
I think they said for teşkilat. Teşkilat.
Yeah, teşekkür ederim.
Really good.
Just one lone dog. Come on. Little dog.
Sorry.
Our first night in Turkey was spent at an unopened campsite overlooking the Bosphorus, as we had convinced the owner to let us in by using our natural charm, as well as money. We headed inland and went to Pamukkale, an area known for its thermal springs and calcium deposits. Happy little tortoise. Hello.
Oh, that was a bit early. Oh.
If we're totally honest, we intended to go inside and visit, but the cost was so extortionate and we're so cheap that we decided not to. My filming would now take a short break, as we headed to Fethiye near the south coast to visit my aunt for a few days. Here we were able to relax, do some laundry, and finally get a proper shower. We were now heading inland towards Cappadocia. The weather was okay, but what really surprised us was the peace and tranquility that is achievable in Turkey. It was so quiet, so relaxing. You could go anywhere and all you'd hear is the occasional barking of a stray dog. You could truly go anywhere and not hear... Wait. Oh no.
Can't I get in? What's stopping me?
By this time, we were well acquainted with kahvaltı, the Turkish breakfast, as we made it to Cappadocia. The incredibly unique and alien landscape that is Cappadocia can't really be described, so I'll just let these videos do the talking for me. My poor filming with my phone doesn't do the area justice, but what you can see is windows and rooms that are dug into the rocks at the top of these chimneys. Hopefully you understand that Cappadocia and its incredible landscape was a perfect excuse to get back out the drone. It was now time to do something touristy, and we decided we would visit one of the many underground cities that were in the local area. Somehow, thousands of years ago, they managed to house thousands of people deep
You
underground.
could definitely do things to your neighbours that they wouldn't like.
Like just exist.
Oh wow. There's a man coming up here very slowly. Really rough stones. Are you photographing me going
Wait for you to drop your phone down it. Before I then drop my phone down it.
Yeah. Hey, this is good down here now. Is this where the poor ones went? No, not entirely. How do you know when people... Are you... This is quite...
Unfortunately, here our journey takes a slightly darker turn, as on the way to Mount Nimrut, we passed by the city of Malatya, and were reminded that Turkey had suffered a major earthquake earlier that year. All the buildings that you can see here were abandoned. The city itself was almost entirely evacuated. We passed by refugee camps with the big white tents and the UN symbol on them. If you look at the base of this building here, you can see the glass is shattered as the building is slowly leaning over. And on this one here, it's extremely obvious that the building is unsafe to reside in. This put us off travelling further south, towards the epicentre of the earthquake, as we didn't want to be tourists to their disaster. And so we headed east, towards Lake Fan. We continued our journey drama-free until a small disaster. A rock has caused a crack in our windscreen which was slowly spreading. But not to worry, we'll stop by the nearby town of Kars to resolve the issue. Everywhere was closed, and so we found a spot to stay the night to try and resolve the windscreen the next morning. Kars turned out to be an interesting university town, and what my terrible drone flying is trying to show you is that we spent the night parked up outside an abandoned World War II bunker, that we even had a little explore inside of. Shine your light around in it. Luckily, the next morning we were saved by this wonderful shop and its very friendly staff. We were able to get a new windscreen fitted within 4 hours, and then we were off to the Georgian border. It was made clear by the condition of the roads, plus the physical border itself, that we were now leaving Turkey and entering Georgia. We spent our first night at a beautiful hotel, at which we were the only guests. Whilst my copyright-free music plays, and I get to practice with my drone for the next few minutes, I thought now might be a good time to voice some opinions from our road trip. One is that Georgia is potentially, almost certainly, the most beautiful country that I've ever encountered. The mountains, the forests, the rivers. It's a breathtaking country that I would encourage everyone to visit. But something else that we need to discuss is the level of driving in these countries is just atrocious. Georgia ranks number 1 for worst drivers in the world that I have ever seen. And not to brag, but I've been to quite a lot of different countries. But Georgia was the most dangerous driving. You could be driving along over the speed limit on just a normal road, or even a mountainous road, any sort of road, and you could still be overtaken at very high speed by a huge 60-year-old Soviet truck blaring its horn, around blind bends, over hidden drops, just in the centre of town. It does not matter. Georgia was the most dangerous traffic that we encountered. Second, I would probably say, is Turkey in worst drivers. In Turkey, there are no road rules, or if there are, they are extremely ignored, and that makes it pretty bad. Compare it to, say, Italy, which I would say third worst. Italy is chaotic, but if you also drive chaotically, you'll probably be okay. Turkey, you don't really know what to do, and in Georgia, you just try your best not to die on every single road. So those are my opinions. Georgia is pretty bad at driving. So please, enjoy the next minute or so of drone footage by the river, as I learnt to fly quite close to the ground, and then we'll continue with our journey. We were now at the most far east point of our journey, the city of Gori and the birthplace of Stalin. I wasn't able to capture many photos or videos, but in the ones that you do see, there is a man on the right hand side who ended up being an American who now lives in the area, and ended up chatting with us for a good while about the country. We headed north into the mountains, stopping at a little cafe that displayed this weird diorama art, and then a Georgian wine cellar, where my father spent an inordinate amount of money on wine and brandy. Okay. The mountains that you see here are the highlight of our journey, and I have a lot more footage of them. But because it's the best footage of the journey, we'll save it for the end and the fade out. For now, we're still in Georgia, another land of the stray dog. In a lot of ways, that's where our journey ends. Of course, it didn't. We had to get back from Georgia, several thousand miles from the Black Sea here, where we even managed to see some dolphins, although I wasn't able to capture them on video. They were there, right there, I promise. But the journey back can be summed up by this video clip, in that it rained, an awful lot, all the way through Turkey, all the way through Greece, where we tried to dry our clothing under a tree. We got the ferry from Greece to Italy, where it did become briefly warm, and then up through Switzerland, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, France, and finally, England.
عليك